Commander Tae-ho Kim stood on the bridge of the Star Wanderer, watching the swirling purple clouds of the Void Nebula through the main screen. The nebula stretched across space like a giant wall of death. No ship that entered it ever came back. No life could survive in its poisonous gases and deadly radiation. "Sir, we're getting strange readings," said Sora Park from her position at the navigation controls. Her fingers moved quickly over the glowing buttons. "There's something in there, something big." Tae-ho walked over to look at her screen. The numbers made no sense. Energy signatures were coming from deep inside the nebula. That was impossible. Nothing could live in there. "Are you sure the sensors are working right?" he asked. Hyun-woo Lee, the chief engineer, checked his own screens. "All systems are normal, Commander. The readings are real." Mi-young Choi, the ship's expert on alien life, joined them. She had been studying the nebula for months. "I've never seen anything like this. The energy patterns look almost like... What?" Tae-ho asked. "Like a city. A very big city." The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew the stories about the nebula. 300 years ago, during the dark times when humanity almost died out, many ships had fled into space. Most found new homes on safe worlds. But some ships, desperate and running out of fuel, had tried to hide in dangerous places. The Void Nebula was one of those places. Tae-ho made a decision that would change everything. "Set course for the energy source. We're going in." "Sir, that's very dangerous," Sora said. "The nebula will destroy our ship." "Not if we're careful. Take us in slowly. Watch the radiation levels." The Star Wanderer moved forward into the purple clouds. The ship shook as deadly particles hit the shields. Warning lights flashed red on every screen, but Hyun-woo kept the engines running, and Sora guided them through the safest path she could find. Hours passed. The nebula seemed to go on forever. Just when Tae-ho thought they might have made a terrible mistake, the clouds began to clear. What they saw on the other side made everyone gasp. A blue and green planet hung in space before them. Cities covered its surface, their lights twinkling like stars. Huge space stations orbited around it. Ships moved between them like busy insects. "Impossible," Mi-young whispered. "How can anything live here?" "Commander," Sora said, her voice shaking, "I'm reading 50 million life forms on that planet. All human." Before Tae-ho could respond, their communication system came alive. A calm voice spoke in perfect Korean. "Unknown vessel, this is New Harmony Control. Please state your name and purpose." Tae-ho looked at his crew. They were all staring at him. After a moment, he pressed the communication button. "This is Commander Tae-ho Kim of the exploration ship Star Wanderer. We didn't know anyone was here. Welcome, Commander Kim. Please follow the guide ships to landing platform 7. Governor Jae Sung-yoon is waiting to meet you." Small, sleek ships appeared around them. They moved with impossible grace, almost like they were alive. The Star Wanderer followed them down to the planet's surface. The landing platform was huge, bigger than anything Tae-ho had ever seen. As they stepped off their ship, a group of people walked toward them. They looked human, but something was different. They moved too smoothly. Their eyes were too bright. They seemed too calm, too confident. The man in front was tall and had silver hair. He wore simple blue clothes that seemed to shimmer in the light. "I am Governor Jae Sung-yoon," he said, bowing slightly. "Welcome to New Harmony. You are the first visitors we have had in 300 years. 300 years? Tae-ho asked. "You've been here for 300 years? Our ancestors arrived here in 2087 fleeing the Great War. The colony ship New Seoul brought 50,000 people. We have grown since then." Mi-young stepped forward. "But how do you survive? The nebula should kill everything." A woman with kind eyes smiled at her. "I am Yoonji Nam, our chief scientist. The nebula does not harm us anymore. We learned to work with it instead of fighting it." She gestured to the city around them. The buildings were tall and beautiful, made of materials that seemed to glow with their own light. Plants grew everywhere, even though they were deep inside a deadly nebula. "The nebula gives us energy," Yoonji explained. "We use its radiation to power our cities. We use its particles to build new materials. What seems dangerous to others has become our greatest gift. Another man joined them. He looked younger but carried himself like a soldier. I am Dokyung Ryu, defense coordinator. Your arrival has caused quite a stir. Our people are very excited to meet visitors from the outside galaxy. Defense coordinator? Hyunwoo asked. Do you have enemies? Dokyung smiled, but his eyes were serious. We have always known that someday we might need to protect ourselves. 300 years is a long time to prepare. Governor Jae-sung led them through the city. Tae-ho had seen many worlds, but this place was unlike anything he knew. The people moved with purpose, but without hurry. Children played in parks where impossible flowers bloomed in colors that had no names. Buildings reached toward the sky, their walls covered in plants that cleaned the air and provided food. How many people live here? Sora asked. 50 million on this world, Jae-sung replied. But New Harmony is not our only home. He led them to a tall tower in the center of the city. From its top, they could see the whole planet. Other cities dotted the landscape, connected by silver tubes that carried people and goods at incredible speeds. We have 12 other worlds, Jae-sung said quietly. All hidden, all growing, all preparing. Preparing for what? Tae-ho asked. Jae-sung looked out at the stars beyond the nebula. For the day when humanity would need us again. For the day when we would return to the galaxy and take our rightful place among the stars. Yoonji showed them technology that seemed like magic. Ships that could fold space and appear anywhere instantly. Machines that could change dead rock into living soil in days instead of years. Computers that thought and learned like human minds, but worked 1,000 times faster. We did not just survive in the nebula, she explained. We evolved. We became something new. Something better. That evening, they sat in a great hall filled with hundreds of people. All of them wanted to hear about the outside galaxy. What had happened to Earth? How many human worlds were there now? Were humanity's children safe among the stars? Tae-ho told them everything he knew. About the 12 human worlds. About the Galactic Council where hundreds of alien species met to make laws. About how humanity was seen as a small, weak race that barely mattered in the great game of galactic politics. The people of New Harmony listened with great interest. Some looked sad to hear how small humanity had remained. Others looked angry that their people were not respected. But Governor Jae-sung just smiled. Perhaps, he said quietly, it is time for that to change. As Tae-ho lay in his guest room that night, he could not sleep. Through his window, he watched the city lights and the strange ships moving through the sky. Somewhere out there, hidden in deadly nebulas and forgotten corners of space, millions of humans had been growing stronger. The galaxy thought it knew humanity. It thought humans were weak and few in number. The galaxy was very, very wrong. The news spread through the galaxy like fire. Commander Tae-ho Kim's report reached the Galactic Council within days. 50 million humans living in the deadly Void Nebula. Advanced technology. Hidden colonies. The words seemed impossible, but the proof was undeniable. Ambassador Velthari of the Zelith hegemony read the report in his office high above the council city. The Zelith had ruled galactic politics for over 2,000 years. They were tall, proud beings with silver skin and minds that could calculate faster than most computers. To them, humans were just another young race that would fade into history. Another human colony, Velthari said to his aide, tossing the report aside. They breed like insects and hide in dark corners. This changes nothing. But deep in the Void Nebula, changes were already beginning. Sung-min Kang stood in the war room beneath New Harmony's capital. Maps of the galaxy covered the walls, marked with red dots where human colonies hid, and blue lines showing trade routes. Sung-min had spent his whole life studying these maps, planning for this moment. The secret is out, said Yoo Jin-han, the colony's military commander. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and hands that never stopped moving. How long before they send warships to investigate? 3 weeks, Sung-min replied, without looking up from his calculations. The Zelith will want to see our strength, for themselves. They will send Admiral Korthak with at least 20 ships. Governor Jae Sung-yoon entered the room with Yoon Ji-nam and Baida Shin, the research director. Baida rarely spoke, but when she did, people listened. Her mind worked differently than others, seeing connections and possibilities that escaped everyone else. "Are we ready?" Jae-sung asked. Sungmin smiled. "We have been ready for 70 years. Project Exodus can begin whenever you give the word." Project Exodus. 3 generations of humans had worked on it in secret. The plan to return humanity to its rightful place in the galaxy, not as beggars asking for scraps, but as equals demanding respect. "Show me the ships," Jae-sung said. They walked through tunnels that led deep underground. The walls were made of the same strange material that covered the city buildings, glowing softly with inner light. These tunnels stretched for hundreds of miles beneath the planet's surface. The shipyard was vast beyond imagination. Thousands of ships hung in the air without any visible support, held up by the same gravity control technology that protected the cities. But these were not like any ships in the galaxy. The hulls seemed to flow like water, smooth and organic. No sharp edges or straight lines. They moved slowly through the air, adjusting their shapes as they flew. Living ships built from materials that had never existed before the humans came to the nebula. "How many?" Jae-sung asked. 12,000 combat vessels, Yujin replied. Each one crewed by volunteers who have trained their whole lives for this mission, each one capable of defeating 10 normal warships. Yoonji led them to her laboratory, where the real secrets lay. Machines that could change the basic structure of matter, computers that thought faster than any alien technology, weapons that could reach across space to touch their targets without traveling the distance between. "The nebula taught us many things," she explained, running her hand over a device that hummed with barely controlled power. "How to bend gravity, how to fold space, how to make living metal that grows and heals itself. But the most important discovery was in the medical bay. Dr. Haewon Cho showed them humans who had volunteered to become something more. Their bodies were stronger, faster, more resistant to radiation and disease. Their minds could connect directly to ship computers, making human and machine work as one. We did not abandon our humanity," Haewon explained. "We expanded it. These volunteers can survive in space without suits. They can pilot ships with their thoughts. They can see across the entire electromagnetic spectrum." 3 weeks later, the Zelith fleet arrived. Admiral Korthak commanded 20 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy. Each one was 5 miles long and carried enough weapons to destroy a city. The Zelith had used ships like these to conquer hundreds of worlds. "Attention, human colony." Korthak broadcast on all frequencies. His voice was cold and mechanical, translated by computer from the Zelith language. "You will surrender your technology for inspection. You will submit to Galactic Council authority. You have 1 hour to comply." On New Harmony, Do-kyung Ryu sat in the Defense Control Center. Around him, screens showed the positions of every Zelith ship. His enhanced senses could feel the electronic signals passing between them, could almost taste their crew's confidence. "Governor," he said into his communication device. "They are waiting for our response." "Give them when they will. Remember," Jae-sung replied. Do-kyung smiled and placed his hand on the gravity control panel. The device responded to his touch like a musical instrument, reading his intentions through direct neural contact. High above the planet, space itself began to change. Admiral Korthak felt it first, as a slight shift in his ship's movement. Then, the artificial gravity inside the bridge flickered. Warning lights began flashing as his engineers reported impossible readings. "Sir?" his second-in-command said, voice tight with fear. "Something is affecting our gravitational field." Korthak looked at his main screen and saw his entire fleet slowly rising up from the planet's orbital plane, not moving under their own power, being moved by some invisible force that held them as gently as a parent lifting a child. For exactly 1 minute, 20 of the galaxy's most feared warships floated helplessly in space, their crews too shocked to speak. Then, just as gently, they were lowered back to their original positions. Do-kyung's voice came over the communication channel, calm and polite. "Welcome to New Harmony, Admiral Korthak. Governor Yoon would be honored to meet with you on the planet's surface. Please bring no more than 10 of your officers. Leave your weapons in orbit. The Zealth Admiral stared at his screens, trying to understand what had just happened. His ships reported no damage, no system failures. They had simply been picked up and moved by a force that his science could not explain. Admiral, his tactical officer said quietly. Our sensors detect no weapons platforms, no defense satellites, nothing that could have generated that effect. Korthak realized that the humans had demonstrated their power using technology his people could not even detect. The implications made his silver skin turn pale. When the Zealth delegation arrived on the planet, they found humans waiting who looked ordinary but moved with impossible grace. Governor Jae-sung greeted them with perfect diplomatic courtesy, as if moving entire fleets with gravity waves was something humans did every day. We apologize for the dramatic demonstration, Jae-sung said as they walked through the city. But we wanted to be clear about our capabilities before we begin discussions. Korthak looked around at the impossible architecture, the flying vehicles, the people whose eyes held depths of knowledge that scared him. What do you want from us? Recognition, Jae-sung replied simply. We want the galaxy to understand that humanity is not the weak, scattered race you think we are. We are your equals. We always have been. That night, as Korthak's shuttle returned to his flagship, he sent an encrypted message to the Zealth High Command. The message was short, but would change everything. The humans are not what we believed. Recommend immediate strategic reassessment. They may be more dangerous than any species we have encountered. In the depths of space, hidden colonies throughout the galaxy began receiving signals. The time for hiding was over. The time for humanity to reclaim its destiny had begun. Sungmin Kang stood before the war room's great map and began placing new markers. Each one represented a target, a goal, a step in the greatest plan ever conceived by human minds. Phase 1 is complete, he announced to the assembled leaders. The galaxy knows we exist. Now we show them what we can do. The Kepler 442 system sat at the crossroads of the galaxy like a jewel covered in blood. 5 beautiful planets orbited a golden star, their surfaces rich with rare metals that powered starships and cities across known space. But for 50 years, the Thurvak Empire had claimed these worlds as their own. The Thurvak were not like other species. They lived for conquest and pain. Their gray skin was covered in scars that they wore like medals. Their ships were ugly and brutal, designed to terrify as much as to fight. They had turned 2 of Kepler 442's planets into mining wastelands, working millions of native creatures to death in the deep tunnels. Sungmin Kang stood before the new Harmony Council, his presentation showing the horrible truth about the Thurvak occupation. Images of dead worlds, enslaved populations, and environmental destruction filled the screens around the meeting chamber. The Galactic Council has debated intervention for decades, he said, his voice calm despite the terrible images. They hold meetings. They pass resolutions. They do nothing while innocents suffer. Governor Jae-sung-yoon studied the tactical displays. What are you proposing, Sungmin? We take the entire system, all 5 planets. We free the slaves. We heal the wounded worlds. And we show the galaxy that humanity will act when others will not. The council chamber went silent. Even for New Harmony, with all their advanced technology, attacking the Thurvak Empire seemed impossible. The Thurvak had thousands of ships and billions of soldiers. Yujin Han, the military commander, leaned forward in her chair. How many ships can we commit to this operation? 12, Sungmin replied. Several council members gasped. Yujin raised an eyebrow. 12 ships against the entire Thurvak garrison? Sungmin, even our ships have limits. Not if we use them correctly, Beta Shin said quietly from her seat near the back. The research director rarely spoke in council meetings, but when she did, her words carried great weight. Show them the new fighters, Sungmin. The display changed to show sleek, small craft that looked more like living creatures than machines. They moved through space with impossible grace, turning and spinning in ways that should have crushed. Their pilots, neural interface fighters, Sungmin explained. The pilot's mind connects directly to the ship's systems, human reflexes enhanced by computer processing speed. Each fighter is as maneuverable as a bird and as deadly as a missile. Won-ho. John, the chief pilot, stood up from his seat. He was young, barely 25, but his eyes held the calm confidence of someone who had never lost a battle. Sir, my squadron has been training in these fighters for 3 years. We are ready. Yoonji Nam activated a holographic model of the Kepler 442 system. The Thurvak keep their main fleet in orbit around the fourth planet. Smaller squadrons patrol the other worlds. Their technology is powerful but predictable. Predictable is good, Yujin said, studying the enemy positions. But they still outnumber us 100 to 1. Sungmin smiled. Numbers mean nothing if your enemy cannot hit you. Our ships can fold space, appear anywhere instantly. We strike all 5 planets at the same time before they can coordinate a response. Governor Jae-sung looked around the table at his advisors. These people had spent their entire lives preparing for this moment. 3 centuries of hiding and planning had led to this decision. The moral case is clear, he said finally. The Thurvak are committing genocide. If we do nothing, we are no better than the council members who talk while innocents die. Do-kyung Ryu, the defense coordinator, nodded slowly. Our enhanced soldiers can survive in environments that would kill normal humans. We can free the slaves and hold the planets while the fleet deals with the Thurvak ships. Very well, Jae-sung decided. Operation Freedom is approved. May humanity forgive us if we fail. 2 weeks later, 12 ships of the New Harmony fleet prepared to fold space. They hung in the darkness beyond the nebula, their living hulls pulsing with controlled energy. Each ship was a masterwork of human engineering, crewed by volunteers who had trained their entire lives for this mission. Admiral Yu Jin Han stood on the bridge of the flagship Harmony's Will. Around her, crew members sat at control stations that looked more like works of art than military equipment. The ship's neural network connected every person aboard into a single thinking organism. All ships report ready, said Su Min Kwan, the tactical officer. Her enhanced eyes could see across multiple spectrums of light, tracking enemy movements, even through asteroid fields and radiation clouds. Pilots are in position, Won-ho John reported from the fighter bay. His consciousness was already linked to his ship's computer, feeling the craft's systems like extensions of his own body. Yujin touched the spacefold control. Reality bent around the fleet as they stepped outside normal space-time. For a moment, that lasted forever and no time at all, they existed everywhere and nowhere. Then they emerged into the Kepler 442 system. The attack began without warning. Human ships appeared simultaneously around all 5 planets, their sudden arrival sending shockwaves through Thurvak communication networks. The enemy had been expecting another routine patrol day. Instead, they faced an enemy unlike anything in their experience. Around the 4th planet, where the main Thurvak fleet guarded their administrative center, 3 human ships faced off against 60 enemy vessels. The Thurvak ships were huge and intimidating, covered with weapon ports and armor plates. They looked like floating fortresses built for war. The human ships looked fragile by comparison, their smooth hulls seeming almost organic. But when the first Thurvak commander ordered an attack, he learned the difference between looking dangerous and being dangerous. The human ships simply vanished, not destroyed, not retreating. They folded space around themselves and reappeared behind the Thurvak fleet. Their weapons reached out across impossible distances, touching enemy ships without traveling the space between. Thurvak vessels found their systems failing, their hulls cracking, their crews paralyzed by technology they could not understand. Won-ho John led his fighter squadron through the enemy formation like a school of fish swimming through coral. The Thurvak fighters were fast and heavily armed, but they moved in straight lines following predictable attack patterns. The human pilots danced around them, their neural interfaces allowing them to think and react faster than any biological mind. Target their command ship, Yu Jin Han ordered. The flagship of the Thurvak fleet was a massive battleship that had conquered dozens of worlds. Its commander, General Vorthak, was a legendary warrior known for his cruelty. Two human ships approached the battleship from different angles. Vorthak ordered all weapons to fire, but the humans were no longer where the sensors indicated. They had folded space slightly, existing just outside normal reality while remaining close enough to attack. Their weapons pierced the battleship's armor like paper. Critical systems failed throughout the massive vessel. In less than 5 minutes, the pride of the Thurvak fleet was dead in space, its crew trapped inside a powerless hulk. On the other planets, similar scenes played out. Thurvak garrisons that had terrorized native populations for decades found themselves facing human soldiers who moved like shadows and struck like lightning. The enhanced humans could survive in poisonous atmospheres, leap incredible distances, and coordinate their actions through direct mental links. The freed slaves watched in amazement as their oppressors fled in panic. Many of the native creatures had never seen humans before, but they recognized liberators when they saw them. Dr. Haiwan Cho led the terraforming teams that began healing the damaged worlds immediately. Her equipment could reverse decades of environmental destruction in days. Poisoned soil became fertile again. Dead rivers began to flow with clean water. The scarred landscapes started to bloom with new life. In 6 hours, the mighty Thurvak Empire lost an entire solar system. Not through overwhelming force, but through precision, innovation, and tactics that seemed impossible. The human fleet had captured most of the enemy ships intact, adding insult to the injury of total defeat. General Vorthak, rescued from his destroyed battleship, stood before Admiral Yujin Han as a prisoner. His gray skin was pale with shock, his scarred face showing confusion and fear. "How?" he asked in his harsh language. "How did 12 ships defeat an entire fleet?" Yujin looked at him with something almost like pity. "Because we are not like you. We do not conquer for the joy of causing pain. We fight to protect those who cannot protect themselves." She gestured to the screens showing the liberated worlds, where former slaves were working alongside human soldiers to rebuild their civilizations. "You see only victory and defeat. We see justice and hope." The news of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy faster than light. The impossible had happened. A minor species with only 12 ships had defeated one of the most feared military forces in known space. In council chambers and military headquarters throughout the galaxy, leaders tried to understand what they had witnessed. How had the humans moved their ships instantly across space? How had their weapons penetrated Thurvak armor without visible projectiles? How had 12 ships accomplished what entire fleets could not? But on New Harmony, Sungmin Kang was already planning the next phase. The liberation of Kepler 442 was just the beginning. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called within hours of the Kepler 442 liberation. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the great chamber, their voices creating a chaos of different languages and emotions. Fear, anger, and confusion rippled through the assembly like waves. Ambassador Velthari of the Zealoth Hegemony stood at the speaker's podium, his silver skin gleaming under the chamber's lights. Behind him, a holographic display showed the tactical recordings from the battle. 12 human ships moving like ghosts through space, appearing and disappearing at will, defeating 60 Thurvak vessels without taking a single loss. "This is an act of unprovoked aggression," Velthari declared, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. "The humans have attacked a sovereign system without council authorization. They must be punished." But other voices disagreed. Representative Kalaneth of the Syrian Alliance rose from her seat, her scaled skin shimmering with bioluminescent patterns that showed her emotional state. "The Thurvak Empire has been committing genocide in that system for 50 years, she said. "We have debated intervention countless times and done nothing. The humans acted when we failed to act." The chamber erupted in arguments. Species that had suffered under Thurvak oppression praised the human action. Others, particularly those in the established power structure, condemned it as a dangerous precedent. Admiral Gorthmak of the Thurvak Empire slammed his clawed fist on his delegation's table. "Give us ships, give us weapons. We will crush these upstart humans and reclaim our territory." But privately, many military leaders were asking different questions. How had the humans moved their ships instantly across space? How had their weapons worked without visible projectiles? Most importantly, what other technologies did they possess? On the liberated worlds of Kepler 442, the transformation was already beginning. Dr. He Wan Cho stood in what had been a strip mining wasteland just days before. Now green shoots were pushing up through the soil as her terraforming machines worked their impossible magic. The native Kethrani people watched in wonder as their poisoned homeworld came back to life. Their leader, Elder Vashatai, approached, He Wan with tears streaming down his scaled face. For 3 generations my people have breathed poison air and drunk toxic water, he said in heavily accented standard. The Thurvak told us this was our fate forever. You have given us back our world. He Wan smiled and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. This is what humanity does. We heal. We build. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. Similar scenes were playing out across all 5 planets. Human soldiers worked alongside freed slaves to build new cities. Human doctors treated injuries and diseases that had been ignored for decades. Human teachers helped young native creatures learn to read and write in their own languages, something the Thurvak had forbidden. But the humans were not the only ones taking action. In hidden chambers across the galaxy, representatives of oppressed species were sending desperate messages to New Harmony. The Veltani people, enslaved by the Krek's dominion for 2 centuries, begged for liberation. The crystal beings of Harmony, Prime, strip-mined by corporate interests, pleaded for help saving their world. Dozens of other species, crushed under the boots of more powerful neighbors, saw hope for the first time in generations. Gite Lim, the intelligence officer, presented these messages to Governor Jae Sung-yoon in a secure briefing room beneath New Harmony's capital. 67 different species have requested our assistance, he reported. Some face extinction if we do not act soon. Jae-sung studied the holographic map showing the locations of the various crises. Each red dot represented millions of suffering beings. Each one was a moral test for humanity. We cannot save them all, he said sadly. Not yet. We do not have enough ships or soldiers. But we can save some, Yu Jin-han said from her seat at the briefing table, and each victory will inspire others to resist their oppressors. Sung-min Kang had been unusually quiet during the meeting. Now he activated a new display showing ship movements throughout the galaxy. We have a more immediate problem, he said. 7 major powers are forming a coalition against us. The Zealoth, the Thurvak, the Krek's Dominion, and 4 others. They are gathering the largest fleet in galactic history. The display showed thousands of ships converging on assembly points throughout the galaxy, dreadnoughts the size of cities, carrier vessels holding millions of fighters, weapons platforms that could crack planets. How many ships? Jae-sung asked. 12,000 combat vessels, Sung-min replied. Led by Supreme Commander Zeth Moran of the Zealoth, their orders are simple. Destroy New Harmony and reclaim Kepler 442. Duk-young Ryu leaned back in his chair, processing the tactical implications. Even with their advanced technology, facing such overwhelming numbers would be difficult. When will they arrive? He asked. 6 weeks, Sung-min answered. They are taking time to coordinate their forces and plan their strategy. Yoon Ji-nam, who had been quietly working on her datapad, looked up with a small smile. 6 weeks is more than enough time. For what? Jae-sung asked. To wake up the rest of humanity. The emergency signal went out that night, transmitted on frequencies that had been prepared centuries ago but never used. Across the galaxy, in hidden colonies and forgotten outposts, human settlements received the same message. The time for hiding is over. Humanity calls for unity. Come home. The response was immediate and overwhelming. From the ice moons of distant systems, human colonies that had adapted to survive in frozen wastelands began preparing their ships. From asteroid mining stations, hidden in radiation storms, humans who had learned to live in the vacuum of space answered the call. Most shocking of all, 17 lost colonies revealed themselves to the galaxy for the first time. Each one had adapted to its unique environment. Each one had developed its own specialized technologies. Each one brought its own strengths to the growing human alliance. The colony of Deep Current had learned to survive in the crushing depths of ocean worlds. Their ships could operate under pressures that would destroy normal vessels. The desert colony of Burning Sky had mastered solar energy collection and heat-resistant materials. Their technology could function even in the coronas of stars. Commander Taeho Kim, now serving as a liaison between New Harmony and the other human worlds, watched the reports come in with amazement. 30 human colonies, he said to Sora Park as they stood in the communication center. We thought there were only 12. Not colonies, Sora corrected, studying the data streams. Nations. Each one has populations in the millions. Each one has been preparing for this moment. The diplomatic effects were immediate. Min Seo Yang, humanity's new ambassador to the Galactic Council, walked into the emergency session with a confidence that surprised everyone present. Honored representatives, she said, her voice calm and clear. Humanity formally claims the Kepler 4E42 system by right of liberation. We offer full citizenship to all native species, environmental restoration, and fair trade agreements. The contrast with Thurvak strip mining could not have been more stark. Where the Thurvak had brought death and slavery, the humans brought life and freedom. But Ambassador Velthari was not finished. Pretty words cannot hide aggressive actions. The humans have violated galactic law. They must face consequences. Minseo smiled politely. With respect, Ambassador. Galactic law requires Council authorization for military action. Did the Council authorize the Thurvak occupation of Kepler 442? The chamber went silent. Everyone knew the answer. The Thurvak had taken the system by force, just as they had taken hundreds of others. The Council had done nothing to stop them. Furthermore, Minseo continued, if the Coalition of 7 attacks human territory, they will be committing the same crime you accuse us of. Humanity reserves the right to defend itself by any means necessary. That night, as reports of the growing human alliance spread throughout the galaxy, many species began to reconsider their positions. If humanity could liberate Kepler 442 with 12 ships, what could they do with the fleets that were now gathering? In the deepest levels of New Harmony, Baida Shin worked on her greatest creation. The Harmony Network was more than just a communication system. It was a way for all human colonies to share knowledge, coordinate actions, and fight as a single organism spanning the galaxy. How long until it's ready? Jae-sung asked, watching the quantum computers that filled the vast underground chamber. 3 days, Beta replied. Once activated, every human settlement will be connected in real time. Our colonies will share technology, tactics, and intelligence instantly. Jae-sung nodded, understanding the implications. For the first time in 3 centuries, humanity would speak with one voice, and that voice would be heard across the galaxy. There, Coalition of 7 was gathering the largest fleet in history to crush the human upstarts. But they were preparing to fight the humanity they thought they knew, weak, scattered, and few in number. They had no idea what humanity had really become. The Coalition fleet was a sight that would have terrified any species in the galaxy. 12,000 warships stretched across space in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with weapons and armor. At the center of this massive armada flew the Eternal Dominion, a super dreadnought the size of a small moon that served as Supreme Commander Zethmoran's flagship. Zethmoran stood on his command bridge, studying tactical displays that showed every human position in the Kepler 442 system. The Zealoth commander was ancient even by his species' standards, having lived for over 800 years and conquered countless worlds. Insignificant, he said to his staff officers, gesturing at the small collection of human ships defending the liberated planets. 37 vessels against 12,000. This will be over quickly. But his intelligence officer, Commander Yithmak, looked troubled. Sir, our scouts report strange energy readings from the human ships. Their technology does not match anything in our databases. Zethmaran dismissed the concern with a wave of his clawed hand. New weapons mean nothing against overwhelming force. Begin the attack. What the Coalition did not know was that 3 days earlier, the Harmony Network had come online. In the deepest chambers beneath New Harmony, Bai Da-Shin activated the quantum communication system that linked every human settlement across the galaxy. For the first time in 3 centuries, scattered humanity became a single organism. The effect was immediate and profound. Knowledge flowed between colonies at the speed of thought. The ice miners of Frozen Deep shared their radiation. Shielding technology. The star dancers of Solar Wind contributed their heat resistance discoveries. The deep space wanderers of the Void Runners provided their navigation secrets. Most importantly, fleets that had been hidden for generations began moving toward Kepler 442. Admiral Yujin Han stood on the bridge of Harmony's Will, watching the Coalition Armada approach. Around her, tactical displays showed not just her own small fleet, but hundreds of other human ships folding space across the galaxy, all converging on this single point. Network status, she asked. Sumin Quan, her consciousness now linked to the galaxy-spanning communication system, smiled. All colonies reporting. We have 412 ships en route. Arrival time, 17 minutes. Fighter status, Wanho. John's voice came from the fighter bay where he was already connected to his enhanced ship. Ready, Admiral. My pilots are eager to show these Coalition forces what human engineering can do. The Coalition attack began with a massive bombardment. Thousands of energy beams and missile volleys crossed space toward the human positions. It was enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. But the human ships simply weren't there when the weapons arrived. They had folded space around themselves, stepping slightly outside normal reality, while remaining close enough to observe and attack. From the Coalition's perspective, their enemies had vanished like ghosts. Then the human counterattack began. Wanho led his fighter squadrons in a dance through space that defied every law of physics the Coalition understood. The small craft moved like living things, turning and diving in ways that should have crushed their pilots. But the neural interface technology allowed human and machine to merge into something greater than either could be alone. Coalition fighters tried to engage them, but it was like trying to catch lightning with a net. The human pilots thought and reacted faster than any biological mind, their enhanced reflexes turning dogfights into one-sided slaughters. Sir, Commander Yithmak reported, his voice tight with fear. We've lost contact with the entire 3rd Squadron. They just disappeared. Zethmaran studied his tactical displays, trying to understand what was happening. Coalition ships were reporting system failures, weapon malfunctions, and crew paralysis, but they weren't being hit by anything their sensors could detect. Then the real shock came. Space around the Coalition fleet began to ripple as hundreds of human ships emerged from quantum fold transit. Not the small, scattered colonies everyone expected, but a coordinated armada that had been planned and prepared for this exact moment. Each ship was different, reflecting the unique environment where it had been built. Vessels from ice worlds gleamed with crystalline armor that could deflect any energy weapon. Ships from desert colonies radiated heat that interfered with targeting systems. Deep space vessels seemed to bend light around themselves, becoming almost invisible. Impossible, Zethmaran whispered. Where did they all come from? His answer came from Admiral Yujin Han's voice on the communication channel. Supreme Commander Zethmaran, this is Admiral Han of the Human Alliance. You are outnumbered and outmatched. Surrender now and your crews will be treated with honor. Outnumbered? Zethmaran laughed harshly. You have 400 ships, we have 12,000. Count again, Yujin replied calmly. More ships were emerging from fold space. Not hundreds now, but thousands. Human colonies that had been hidden in asteroid fields, gas giant moons, and radiation storms were revealing themselves for the first time. Each one brought its own fleet, its own specializations, its own contributions to the growing human armada. The Battle of Kepler 442 became the stuff of legend, though it was less a battle than a demonstration. The Coalition forces, for all their overwhelming numbers, found themselves fighting an enemy that operated by completely different rules. Human ships moved through space like schools of fish, each vessel part of a larger organism guided by the Harmony Network. When coalition weapons fired, the humans simply folded space to avoid them. When humans attacked, their weapons reached across impossible distances to touch targets that thought they were safely out of range. But the most shocking moment came when a coalition battleship attempted to ram one of the smaller human vessels. The human ship didn't dodge or defend itself. Instead, it simply opened a spacefold portal and redirected the massive battleship into empty space, where it found itself alone and confused, millions of miles from the battle. "Admiral," Wanho reported from his fighter, "Coalition forces are beginning to surrender. Their pilots are ejecting rather than continue fighting." Across the battlefield, coalition crews were abandoning their ships rather than face weapons they couldn't understand, wielded by enemies they couldn't hit. The most powerful military force in galactic history was dissolving in panic and confusion. Supreme Commander Zeth Morin found himself alone on his bridge as his crew fled to the escape pods. Through his view screen, he watched human ships moving through his fleet like gentle giants, capturing vessels without destroying them, rescuing crews who had tried to kill them just moments before. A human ship approached the Eternal Dominion, its organic hull flowing like water. A voice came over the communication channel, speaking perfect Zealoth. "Commander Zeth Morin, this is Governor Jae-Sung Yoon of New Harmony. Your fleet is defeated, but your people are not our enemies. Will you accept our terms for surrender?" Zeth Morin looked at his tactical displays one last time. Of his 12,000 ships, over 9,000 had been captured intact. The rest were fleeing toward the edge of the system. His mighty coalition had been defeated not through destruction, but through demonstration of overwhelming technological superiority. "What terms?" he asked quietly. "Return to your governments. Tell them that humanity seeks peace, but will defend the innocent with whatever force is necessary. Tell them that the age of oppression is ending." 3 days later, Governor Jae-Sung Yoon stood before the Galactic Council in the Great Chamber, where so many species had gathered to make laws and policies. But now the chamber was different. Representatives of dozens of liberated species sat alongside the established powers, their voices finally free to speak. "Honored representatives," Jae-Sung began, his words translated into hundreds of languages. "Humanity formally announces the creation of the Liberation Alliance. We offer membership to any species that shares our values of freedom, justice, and mutual cooperation." The response was immediate. Over half the species in the chamber rose to their feet, signaling their desire to join. Many of them had been oppressed by the very powers that had formed the coalition. Ambassador Velthari of the Zealoth tried to maintain his dignity, but his silver skin had turned pale with shock. "This is unprecedented. The established order has maintained galactic peace for millennia." "Peace for whom?" asked Representative Kalaneth of the Syrian Alliance. "There has been no peace for the enslaved, the oppressed, the forgotten. Humanity offers something the old order never could: hope." Min Seo-yang, humanity's ambassador, stepped forward with a datapad containing formal treaties and agreements. "The Liberation Alliance offers technology sharing, mutual defense, and assistance with terraforming and development. We ask only that member species commit to protecting the innocent and respecting the rights of all sentient beings." The vote was overwhelming. In a single session, the political structure that had dominated the galaxy for thousands of years crumbled and reformed around new principles. But perhaps the most powerful moment came when Elder Vashtai of the Kethrani people spoke to the assembly. "For 50 years my people suffered under Thurvak oppression," he said, his scaled face showing both sadness and hope. "We begged this council for help. We were ignored. In one day, humanity did what you could not do in 50 years.